Welcome back. You tuned into Inspired Afternoons with me, your host, Miriam Mia. And as I mentioned in my introduction, today, 29th September, is World Heart Day. So happy World Heart Day. And the other day I was reading something that the heart, there's no other organ that has a symbol more than the heart in terms of what it signifies both literally and figuratively. And yes, our actual organ, the heart, needs to be cherished. Our symbolic heart needs to be cherished, and we need to look after them both our actual organ, the heart, as well as our symbolic heart in terms of what it represents love, needs to be nurtured, needs to be cherished, and we need to ensure that we don't ever suffer a broken heart. Or also, if it does, then how do we nurture it back to good health and restorative health? So on the line, I have joining me now in StreamYard, I have the CEO of the Swedish-based organization World Heart Federation, and I have the CEO, who's Jean-Luc Eisele, on here, and we're going to be chatting to Jean-Luc all about the World Heart Day message and what are the aims and objectives of World Heart Federation. Good afternoon, Mr. Jean-Luc.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you today. The World Heart Day theme this year is Use Heart to Beat CVD, cardiovascular disease. I mean, cardiovascular disease are the largest killer in the world. Every year, 18 million people die from cardiovascular disease, and this is mostly preventable. And as you said, the topic this year is Use Your Heart in all the dimensions. Use our brain, use empathy or compassion towards our family, towards our neighbors, towards our patients, and towards our population.
Just to say, I love your T-shirt. Before we go any further, I just love this T-shirt. I need to get me one like this, and I need to. Yes, it's such a cool T-shirt. I think besides this, I want to just be an ambassador as well and just wear this out, because I think especially with COVID and that we need more messages like this, positive messages. And I come from the mindset that prevention is always better than cure, and I think that is part of the Federation's message in terms of how can we prevent adopting a lifestyle that will make us prevent cardiovascular diseases.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the theme Use Heart is something that can be adapted to every country, every message. So it can be Use Heart to beat CVD, but it can be Use Heart to fight COVID, use heart to choose healthy styles, use heart to select good food, use heart to take the stairs. So there's plenty of activities that can use this topic of using heart. And as you said, even under COVID time, we think it's even more important to display and show this message, because as you know, a lot of the patients who are dying from COVID actually have cardiovascular disease. And if you have cardiovascular disease, you're much more likely to get infected and die from COVID. So we think that it's really appropriate and this time to have this message, use heart. And I will be happy to send you a shirt today.
Looking forward to it. So I just want to go back and tell our listeners about the World Heart Federation is the principal representative body for global cardiovascular community, representing more than 200 heart foundations, scientific societies, civil society, patient organizations from over 100 countries. And together with all the members, they're working to end the needless deaths and build global commitment for improved cardiovascular health at the global, regional, national, and community levels. And their motto of the World Heart Federation believes in a world where heart health for everyone is a fundamental human right and a crucial element of global health justice. A profound message indeed, and profound words. And I'm so pleased there's an organization such as yours advocating this global health justice in terms of good cardiovascular health.
Cardiac societies, and for instance in South Africa we're very pleased to have the South African Heart Association as well as the Heart Foundation, so both members which represent both the professional, the cardiologist, and the patients and the public, the civil society voice. As you said, for us, it's very important to bring all these people together and to display a message of saying that prevention is key, because cardiovascular to a large extent can be prevented. Just to take a few examples, we know that tobacco, I was looking at some data in South Africa, you have between 18 and 20% of the people smoking. We know that's a major risk. We know that's something that can be fight at the country level by increasing taxes. I think your country has been one of the first to work on taxation of sugary beverages. We also know it's an excellent measure. So there's this type of global measure that helps people making the right choices. And there's also all the personal choice that we make during our life, whether we go for this or for that. So really the World Heart Federation is really about wherever you live, whichever conditions you are, that you have this option to make the best choices for your life. And I would say World Heart Federation is not about poor countries. It's, as you said, it's everywhere where people are suffering from heart health, poor heart health. So really, we think that our message should be global and for everyone.
Yes, and I feel proud as a South African in terms of our legislation when it comes around smoking as well as sugar beverages, and that we've actually been the leaders, global leaders in terms of our taxation, in terms of advertising. In South Africa, you're not allowed to advertise when it comes to cigarettes, cigarette sponsorships for sporting events or any cultural events, so that every cigarette packet has a warning there in terms of how bad cigarettes are for your health. And also, I think our government was very proactive in terms of on the outset of COVID, when we had our restrictions, smoking was banned. Smoking, I know there was a big war between our the tobacco industry and the bodies in terms of the revenue we're losing in taxes, but our minister stood firm in terms of the potential high risk, especially with COVID, the increased risk of those that are going smoking, posing a health risk as well. So I think in that way, when it comes to cardiovascular diseases and prevention, in terms of smoking being one of the high risk factors, contributing factors, South Africa is in terms of that very proactive in the steps we've taken regarding our tobacco laws.
I mean, exactly. I mean, as you might know, our current president, Professor Karen Sleeve, is actually from South Africa, from Cape Town. And every time she is telling me about this story that for a few months cigarettes were banned, it's a fantastic result. And I'm sure that even if it was forced, that's the type of thing that make people thinking, do I really need to smoke? I mean, as we know, smoking is responsible for about 1 death out of 10 worldwide. It's huge. And I think countries like South Africa, I think the current Minister of Health, President Ramaphosa, can really show a strong leadership in South Africa, but also for Africa globally and many countries. I think it's essential for our global awareness campaign to have countries like South Africa that show that prevention of cardiovascular is at the top of their priority, despite all the problems that every country has, and especially under this time.
Okay, so I see here on your website they say use heart is about using your head. So can you elaborate a little about when we're using our heart, we need to use our head, use your influence in your compassion?
Yeah. So there's many aspects about using your heart. As you said, the heart is not only an organ, it's also a fantastic symbol. Mm-hmm. So use your head. There are many cases where you have to make a decision. I'm going to use the lift or the stairs. I can decide to walk or to drive. So using our head is one way where we can work on this. The compassion element is really to say, if I can use my heart to care for my family, for my neighbors, for my close friends. That's really something which is not only head driven, but it's also the aspect of using our compassion. And finally, the last topic, influence. it's I can influence my children. As a doctor, I can influence my patients. Maybe even more important, as a minister, as a president, I can influence my population and my community. So it really using your heart as many dimensions. That on what heart they would like to emphasize and ask people to reflect on.
And then use your heart for compassion. The last one there I see, for compassion. And I'm so pleased you brought this compassion in, because like you say again, that heart is symbolic of compassion. Besides that organ, like I say, the heart is such a profound organ. It's the lifeline. It is life. Our heart is our life. Without our heart, you have no life. But yet, if you have to look at that symbolic, if you don't have compassion, then you might as well be a robot. And I think that symbolicness of a heart that is filled, you're a person of compassion, you're a person that gives love, would like to receive love, and all the time we nurture. We don't want to see broken hearts, whether it's physically or symbolically. So I'm so pleased you've used use heart for compassion as well. So you brought this emotional aspect as well into this whole preventative highlighting measure on World Heart Day.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I mean, the heart has many dimensions, and compassion, I think, is key in public health. We're talking about equity. We're talking about access to care for everyone. We are talking about access to prevention, access to healthy environments, and without compassion, whether we are a mother, a father, a child, a doctor, or a minister. Without compassion, the world would not be the same. So that's really something which for us is very important, and we would urge all policymakers to, especially under these difficult circumstances, to think about compassion, because as you said, that's key. We're human beings, and compassion is key in our relationships and in building a stronger society together.
Can we just touch a little bit about hypertension and diabetes in terms of contributors towards cardiovascular disease, please?
We know that there are a number of so-called risk factors which lead to cardiovascular disease. One is hypertension. So hypertension is basically when your vessels slightly contracted, and then the blood is more pressure, and then it creates a situation that you don't feel. So it's one of these silent disease, but put you at risk, in particular of stroke and cardiovascular accident. Cholesterol or high lipids is another risk, where the vessel would slowly be clouded, and the blood cannot flow anymore, and it also leads to stroke or other cardiovascular disease. These two risk factors are both, again, preventable and treatable. We have now very good treatment for hypertension that can be managed. I think in South Africa, about 1 person out of 3 is suffering from hypertension, one at different levels. But it's really something that we emphasize as one of the major public health measures to save lives. And it's as I said, treatments are available as generics, so really accessible. And it's also important, once you have diagnosed, to keep taking the pills. And something we've noticed worldwide during the COVID crisis is that because people were staying home, were worried, a lot of heart attacks were not diagnosed, a lot of hypertension cases were not diagnosed, and some people simply stopped taking their pills. So that's one of the other consequences of COVID on cardiovascular patients, that they are at higher risk of cardiovascular accidents.
And on the diabetes front?
On the diabetes, yeah, thank you. On the diabetes, it's one of the other important risks for cardiovascular disease, because again, it's linked to blood circulation, and it's known that diabetes, let's say obesity, diabetes, in major cases link to higher risk of cardiovascular accident. It could be heart attack. It could also be a heart failure when you are aging patient. So it's we also see the development of diabetes as a major concern for cardiovascular disease. And actually, the World Heart Federation is working very closely with our colleagues from diabetes to try to bring these patients, make these patients aware of the risks they have, not only of diabetes, but also of cardiovascular disease.
That was most informative. In terms of this, what is the early signs in terms of you suffering an onset of a cardiovascular attack or things like that? How do you know? I know some people say it's a pull in the heart muscle, some people are mistaken for indigestion or that, but what are some of the early warning signs? And again, bring it to the fore, seeking medical attention earlier rather than later, I'm sure can prevent major heart damage.
So I mean, there are different symptoms. In the case of heart attack, usually you feel some pain in the arm more than the heart. Usually it's more in the arm, and you're tired, difficulty to breathe. That could be a symptom. So all these symptoms should really prompt you to your doctor as soon as possible. You have other symptoms which are linked to stroke, which are more loss of equilibrium, difficulty to visualize things, difficulty to speak. That's are more difficult to diagnose by the patient himself, but by your family and your neighbors. So if your family see that you are suffering from this type of symptom, that should also be an emergency to go to your doctor, to the hospital.
Okay, and finally, I'd like to ask you, from what age do you recommend individuals should go for probably a cholesterol test, or just an overall checkup in terms of medically you okay, in terms of you don't have any predisposition towards developing a cardiovascular? At what age? I'm thinking something like 40 above, or even before that, maybe just for good physical, once a year, have your cholesterol taken, your blood pressure tested and things like that. And taking vitamins and supplements, will that prevent cardiovascular disease? So what do we do in terms? I'm looking at myself that I consider myself relatively fit. I don't suffer from any of the pre-existing conditions, but yet I'd like to use this day as an opportunity to become more focused in terms of good health heart and use heart.
So there's, let's say, the medical aspect and the lifestyle aspect.
Mm-hmm.
From the medical aspect, it's I wouldn't give you any strong data, because it's a discussion which is debating even in the medical community. But taking, say, the blood pressure every year looks like a reasonable measure. So if you're going to your doctor from time to time, you should take your blood pressure on a regular basis. That's really something which gives a lot of information. I mean, taking a blood sample measuring cholesterol, let's say, if you start to do it if you've done it once when you were young and there's no reason to do it every year. I mean, you might do it every 10 years. When you start to get closer to 50 and 60, that's where the problems can start. So maybe it's time to go more often for this type of measurements. But it's more your lifestyle globally that you should look at. If you're not exercising, if you're overweight, if you're smoking, then you should check your cholesterol on a regular basis, because the other risks contribute to your general health status. If you're doing everything right, there's no reasons to worry more than necessary. And in terms of lifestyle, or the choice you can make, it's really going back to the basics of having making the right choices in terms of vegetables, fruits. You want to go to junk food one day, go for it. It's fun, but it's a balance between all the activities you're doing, which are important. You want to sleep one day, you don't, that's fine, but then the rest of the week you should work and exercise. So it's really this balance that we recommend. Life should be fun. It's not about being on diet every day, but it's really finding the right balance between the fun and what would be good for your heart health.
That was most informative, and I'm so glad we had this chat, because you've put so many things in perspective. And like I say, I heard today's World Heart Day, but I didn't realize there was so much information and so much thought put in by the Federation in terms of creating awareness around cardiovascular disease, especially how to prevent it, and as well as the mission statement in terms of we need health justice in terms of uh, ensuring that every member, a global society, a global citizen, has access to proper healthcare information in terms of preventing cardiovascular disease, and we all living a healthy, productive, wealthy life. Because you know what, for me, my health is my wealth. You can't put a price on good health. So yes, thanks so much for joining us all the way from Sweden, and I'll wait for the T-shirt.
Thank you, and have a great day. Thank you for your time, and ever use your heart. Let's use our heart to beat cardiovascular disease. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're going to hear on Salam Media. All the best for you. And from everybody from the team, we're definitely going to use our heart to institute positive change, both symbolically and figuratively in terms of our heart. Thanks so much, Dr. Jean-Luc, for joining us here on Salam Media on Inspired Afternoons.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Okay, and that was it. So everybody, I think let's use our heart. Let's use our hearts to drive positive change. Let's use our hearts to ensure that our health becomes our wealth. And yes, it's an organ filled with good symbolism, with kindness, with compassion. So I really enjoyed that interview, and coming all the way from Sweden, from the World Heart Federation. And please do look at the website. It's a very, very insightful, informative website. Coming up, we're going to have our young, new, dynamic presenter, Sister Humaira Mayat. She's already here at our offices, preparing for her segment. It's a current affairs show that she hosts every Monday afternoons. She occupies the hot seat. Well, I warm the seat for her so then she can step in. And today she's going to be discussing refugee crisis in Uganda. And this is with Cristiano D'Orsi. And thereafter, she is going to speaking to Sox McKenna, and they're going to be discussing why university rankings don't matter. Yes, there's always a hullabaloo in terms of which university is ranked in what category in terms of the world. And I know UCT has been featured as one of the best universities in terms of better performing university in terms of rankings. But let's listen to Sox McKenna in conversation with Humaira Mayat in terms of why university rankings don't matter. Looking forward to those. And from me, yes, thanks once again for having the privilege of your company. It's been another exciting, educational, informative segment. Looking forward to being in your company next week as well, here only on Salam Media and Inspired Afternoons. And I'd like to acknowledge the entire team for putting the production together. Yes, sometimes we run out of time and I don't always acknowledge the team and the entire team here. I have my boss, let me salute him there, Zihad, always engineering, keeping me honest, ensuring I do everything professionally. Then I've got my producer Dudu here, and then we've got Alia, we've got Ashazia, we've got Arai, and the entire team, and all supported by our CEO or COO, Brother Ponti Malatsani. So today I time to acknowledge the whole gang. And pleased that you have such a wonderful team supporting you here. So from me, please keep safe, peace and blessings to all our listeners, and may you be under the mercy and protection of the Almighty always. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.